That is an interesting correlation, actually, that just came to my mind. It's not those people that are good at pull-ups, that are good at front levers, are people that are good at deadlifts, that are really good at front lever.
It's really intriguing to me how a single skill can be as iconic and popular, while at the same time have so many different shades and uncertainties around it. I don't think I have to introduce front lever to any of the viewers. However, ironically, there's a high chance each one of us has certain different belief or understanding of both technical aspects and the difficulty that front lever carries. On surface level, we can all agree there's nothing complicated. It's just holding straight body under the rings or the bar. In reality though, front lever creates one of the biggest confusions I've ever faced since starting bodyweight training. Some call it a beginner move, others say it's as hard or even harder than planche. Some achieve it in 2 months, others battle for years without any results. Dozens of exercises, drills and progressions floating around the internet, dozens of myths, technical mistakes and theories appearing every day in the posts, videos and comments under them. And it's really crazy that all of it happens while some of us sleep in the full front lever position and the others can't get out from the advanced tuck zone. As a person that is rather the part of that second group, the topic is something I can directly relate to. This video is not a tutorial. I'm not gonna discuss the programming and won't tell you the one trick to getting this skill. However, what I will do is try to answer the one bothering question that's been on my mind for years. Why is front lever so hard to some people while so easy to the others? Since calisthenics gained some popularity and bodyweight online forums began existing, there's a continuing discussion regarding the front lever. The history and background of this skill obviously take us back to nowhere else but the gymnastics hall. The move is rated A in the gymnastics code of points, which in rings case is a scale from A to F, with F being the most difficult. For the reference, full planche on the floor is B and Maltese is classified as a C. The specifics of mentioned discussion very often refer to the transfer of pulling strength to the skill. From the anatomical standpoint, it makes total sense. Front lever is mainly shoulder extension, basically pulling the bar to the hips with straight arms. The main responsible muscles for this function are lats, the large upper body muscles that in this particular function are supported by teres major and posterior part of the delts, as well as some other muscles. The component of retraction in the front lever, which is keeping scapulas pulled back, is mainly covered by the trapezius. Now, looking at the exercise like pull-up or row, it's not hard to realize that both these motions more or less occur. And since the primary muscles are pretty much the same, it's definitely fair to suspect some correlation. The problem is, there are quite reasonable arguments on both sides. There are also athletes representing different answers by their performance. Some get their front lever by almost only doing weighted pulls, others are unable to perform it despite very high numbers. All these anecdotes don't really let us make any general statement or draw any objective conclusion. That's when I realized that there is a way to possibly find out the answer.
Rarely do you see that front lever training is being limited by joint integrity, unlike planche or Maltese for example. So in a sense it makes the training more simple. You can attack it in a much more straightforward approach.
One day I was having a walk in the park when I suddenly got an idea. I'm gonna create a survey. I immediately decided to get back home and on my way have been thinking about the structure of the questionnaire. The requirements were quite straight. My survey couldn't be too long and should take less than 1 minute to complete. I had to choose the exercise that not only supposedly correlates with front lever, but is also easy to measure, accessible and popular enough amongst calisthenics people. The final choice went on weighted pull-up, which probably won't shock anyone. After a short introduction, the participant was set in front of 2 questions. First one asked for weighted pull-up 1 rep max. I specifically included answers referring to relative strength by putting up 7 different levels. In case someone did not test his 1RM, I attached a link to the calculator that allows to estimate it based on higher rep sets. The second question obviously referred to the front lever, for which I've chosen 6 progressions and asked to mark the hardest one that participant could hold for 3 seconds. Now, looking from the time perspective, I also made a pretty smart move of basically leaving an empty space where people could optionally add extra information or insights. Thanks to a couple of them, I decided to add 3 additional questions regarding height, weight of participants, as well as their max pull-up number, which helped me to assess the accuracy of first answer. Because I understand some just may not be aware of the transfer of unweighted work to weighted. The survey has been officially done, but it was just a beginning. Now the real challenge occurred, which was actually getting some people to complete the survey. I set a goal of 250 answers, to which achieving I used every single resource I had available. I made a post on Instagram and put the link to my bio, asked some of my personal friends and made a post on the YouTube community tab, which I by the way recently unlocked. People started sharing the survey and I managed to get about 100 answers, but it was still not enough. Fortunately, the hope got brought back soon. I decided to create a post on Reddit Bodyweight Fitness with the explanation of the project and attachment of the link to the questionnaire. Luckily, people seemed to like the idea and the post started getting more and more votes along with lots of engagement in the comments. All the action caused me to achieve the number goal, and after excluding trolls and some very unlogical answers, I got exactly 322 people completing the survey. With this amount of data, I could comfortably start the analysis and draw some more or less brave conclusions. I spent a whole evening sorting out the answers and came to the following results. First thing I should mention is that luckily the levels of the athletes completing the survey were pretty various. Of course the extremes were significantly less numerous than middle answers, but I'm pretty happy with how it played out. In the group of less than 10% bodyweight pull-up, the majority of people marked tuck and advanced tuck front lever. In 10 to 30 we again see a significant domination of tuck and advanced tuck, but we also got one straddle and one full lever, which was, I'm not gonna lie, surprising to see. In a group 30 to 50, along with many advanced tucks, we see the growing number of straddle and straddle half-lay levers. As we step into 50% plus territory, we see a massive increase in full and straddle levers, but still most answers are the advanced tucks. It all changes drastically stepping into 65 to 80 group with the massive domination of full levers and even greater percentage as we get to 80 to 90 and then 90+%. Which is honestly something I would expect at this point despite all the other potential factors. Okay, so the question now is, what can we take out from these results? The first conclusion is that weighted pull-up strength has, as expected, direct correlation with front lever. As we go through progressive pull-up groups, the net front lever progression's difficulty raises along. However, while there's a clear correlation occurring, we definitely cannot say weighted pull-up strength is a guarantee for having strong front lever. It is especially visible amongst the middle groups. Within the 30 to 50% range, which I'm gonna guess is the level most people on this channel represent, there were 10 people capable of full lever and same number of people with only tuck, which is a huge difference. Much bigger than we would expect even between the two ends of this group. And of course the survey has its flaws and limitations. There is no form check involved, no standardized pull-up technique, the groups have quite big ranges of percentages and low numbers of participants. But still, there is something very intriguing about these numbers. Maybe there are some other factors I did not take into account. Maybe the mystery of front lever goes beyond the relative strength of back muscles and is hiding behind some other metrics.
But there's also lots of people who find planche way easier than front lever, which is something also interesting.
The first thing that probably came to your mind is that maybe there are some other muscles responsible for the occurring differences. Muscles that are not being directly tested by weighted pull-ups. Because at the end of the day, front lever is not only about the shoulder extension. There is an obvious component of holding body together in a straight line, and what's responsible for that? Mainly the abdominal muscles. Now, it's not a surprise that abs play a role in front lever. Just like glutes, hip flexors and other leg muscles, they help you to keep the body in straight line, remain the right posture and create tension. But I have to tell you, they are not a reason for not being able to hold front lever in a vast majority of cases. And it's not 2012 to blame core strength for every bodyweight skill. Yeah, like just imagine how much core strength this guy has, like he's probably been doing sit-ups since being little baby. So let's quickly explain the reason why it's not the case. The function of the abdominal muscles we are talking about is pulling the ribcage and pelvis to each other, in other words, flexing the lumbar and thoracic spine, which is obviously occurring isometrically in the lever. However, here is the origin and here is insertion. So the role of abs finishes here. Yes, it takes the weight of pelvis and whole legs, but it's the shoulder extensors that take full weight from shoulder level down. Here is the little test for those who want to find out if their abs are strong enough for the front lever. Basically, put your body on a bench or something like you would imitate the position, keeping your pelvis slightly over the bench. If you're able to raise your legs from the bottom but can't hold the front lever, abs are most likely not your issue. You may ask, what if your front lever looks like this? Is the piking in hips an indication of weak abs? Again, the answer is usually no. In order to explain that, let's dive in a bit into the simple physics behind front lever. The mechanism that let us achieve this position is basically the third-class lever. The lever remains balanced and parallel to the ground when the moment on both sides of the pivot point, which is the bar, is the same. In other words, the center of mass of the full body is exactly under the bar. However, this is just the result of what is happening in this segment. By applying strength onto the bar, which is a stable point, you pull this segment up. How much force you need for that depends on two factors: the weight of the segment and the distribution of it, which influences the position of center of mass of this segment. The distance from our shoulder to center of mass is called the moment arm. These two components create the moment of load, which is the product of this equation. The head and everything behind the shoulder actually helps us to hold the position by counterbalancing and adding up to our force. So in theory, the larger your head is, the easier front lever. If you don't believe me, ask someone to put pressure on your forehead next time you're doing lever and see the results. Just please be careful. I think it's also worth to mention about the arm's length and how does it influence the difficulty. It's not as easy to determine because on one hand longer arms means more force has to be generated due to longer force arm, but at the same time look what happens as they get longer. The angle of flexion becomes larger, which may cause better activation of superior lats region. But since the peak lat contraction happens between 30 to 60 degrees of shoulder flexion based on what I read, I'm not sure it's gonna provide any significant changes. Yeah, when we go for Victorian for example, the difficulty raises tremendously since the move gets much more dependent on posterior delts, which are admittedly smaller and weaker muscles than lats. Same situation may be happening in planche, where the smaller flexion angle means less anterior delt activation, which is the strongest shoulder flexor. Thus, the more lean increases, the more we have to rely on the chest, which causes the planche to get harder. For now, I will assume the arm length doesn't have a significant influence on front lever. If it makes it harder though, then it will most likely influence pull-ups this way as well, and we try to find the things that go beyond this correlation. Okay, so now let's get back to the original question. What does this situation indicate? The answer is very simple, and I hope you get it now. Bending in hips causes shortening of the body and decreases the distance from here to here, which is the moment arm. This means less force needs to be generated to counterbalance and the center of mass gets closer to the head. That's exactly why people use progressions like tuck, advanced tuck or straddle lever. If you think about it, what it really is just lengthening the moment arm and therefore increasing the force that has to be applied. So, as we know the basic mechanism behind front lever, we may investigate what might be the potential cause for inconsistency we observed. The inconsistency in the transfer of weighted pull-ups to this skill. So if it's not the change in relative strength applied here to the weight of this segment, there has to be something related to the placement of center of mass. Because I don't think the size of head varied drastically amongst participants, and putting the weight just below shoulders probably doesn't change much as well, I assume that what really sabotaged the front lever position is any weight put below the center of mass that will cause it to travel towards feet level and lengthen the load arm on top of adding weight. Think about it, compare adding even 10 kilograms on your chest and putting 3 kilo ankle weights. The difference is immense. On the other hand, compare putting resistance band on your feet, then put it perpendicularly to the ground and at the end put it on your upper back. Even though the band is taking relatively the same weight, I mean it's stretched out a little bit more on feet of course, but even if we take lighter band it will still get much easier. Why? Because on top of weight itself it changes the distribution of it. Based on that, we can determine that there are certain regions of the body that may contribute towards performance. The closer to the feet, the bigger responsiveness we can expect in both directions, as we concluded in weights and resistant band example. Naturally, the first thing that come to my mind are the length and weight of foot, lower leg and thigh. I checked out some research that was being done over the centuries regarding body segments, both the relative length and relative weight. By taking a look at some of the results regarding these metrics, I realized there are some noticeable differences in both average leg weight and length even between these studies, which causes me to conclude there is definitely a somewhat broad range that may be occurring amongst individuals. And even couple % difference in relative weight and length can make a big difference if we talk about the distal parts of body, like our calves and thighs. Because, like I said, the lever will be most responsive and dependent on their metrics. Next step is assessing what are the factors that may contribute to the weight distribution. From the mentioned studies we know gender is surely one of them, but there is also the other factor that I actually measured in the survey: the height of participants.
So from a purely biomechanical standpoint, I feel like a full front lever is much harder than a full planche.
Now, I can obviously just speculate, but I really think that height can have a significant impact on the front lever. Unfortunately, I did not find any study that would compare segment lengths and weight or center of mass position in relation to height. However, I think it's fair to say that people who are taller will usually have proportionally longer and heavier lower body. As we already established, the relative strength measured in pull-ups does take weight part into consideration, but it does not include its distribution. Look how much more strength I have to put to hold 5 kilos in hands and how it reduces when I put the same weight on forearms. It's very similar mechanism that really makes a difference. I took a look at my survey once again and decided to split it up into 3 relatively evened out groups, this time based on the height of individuals. Below 170, 171 to 180 and above 180 centimeters. Once I had the groups down, I calculated the percentages of different front lever progressions and compared the 3 groups together. In the shortest group, full lever was a dominating progression with almost 50% of participants. In the middle group it dropped to 30 and in the plus 180 centimeters it got to 25%. What's even more interesting to me is the ratio of advanced tuck to full lever, which raises up as we go up in height in the following manner. I was also curious about the relative strength comparison between these groups. After creating the graphs, I did not find any significant changes in this metric, and surely no strong tendencies between the groups. Is it just statistics, or maybe there is something to it? Maybe the height increases required relative strength for the front lever and therefore makes it harder. Now, out of curiosity, I decided to take a look at the last factor I measured in the survey, which was the weight of participants. In pull-up, the distribution of weight doesn't really make as much difference, because it's more or less a vertical movement and any symmetrical load we put on the body won't affect its mechanics much. Front lever, on the other hand, is a parallel skill that is hugely dependent on the distribution of load. So yes, hypothetically, if a person gains weight perfectly distributed that the COM doesn't change, the skill doesn't get any easier or harder when the relative strength is the same. However, it might not be the case in the example like this. If you weigh 80 kilos and can pull up with 40 kilos on a belt, your relative strength is at 50%. Now, if you bulk up to 100 kilos and increase your pull to 50, the relative strength is the same. But if you put the majority of weight in the hips and thighs area, which is arguably the easiest place to pack on mass, your front lever performance will most likely drop. Again, did not find studies representing the relation of body weight and center of mass in humans, but I at least decided to take a look at my survey. After repeating the procedure, splitting participants into 3 groups and calculating the percentages, I got the following results. To my surprise, I again did not find any differences between relative strength of these groups. I would even risk to say it grew a bit along with body weight, yet still did not correlate with front lever. Is it just a coincidence, or maybe the weight really plays a role as the survey suggests? Now, obviously we have to be a bit skeptical looking at these statistics, but after analyzing these two additional metrics, we may definitely come to the one conclusion. Two people with same relative pulling strength can still present highly different front lever performance. That is gonna mainly differ based on the weight distribution in their body. So people with bigger calves and thighs who are taller on top of it will have a massive disadvantage in learning front lever position despite of the relative pulling strength. However, it is still not the complete end of the mystery. Thanks to the empty space I mentioned, some participants gave me certain other ideas regarding front lever difficulty. So let me go over the two extra points that may have potentially influenced the results of the survey.
Even when your goal is purely straight arm strength, I think still bend arm strength matters more, because you can just get there by training only straight arm.
So the points I'm gonna go through refer to the specificity of training and the test itself. The first major question we should ask ourselves is how big of a difference straight arm front lever exercises can make. Now, this one is, I feel, both over and underestimated dependent on the context. Straight arm exercises should probably not fill out the majority of your training volume. I like to look at them like the special ingredient you add to your soup or something. The thing that gives this extra spark, and without it the soup is not really that good, but at the same time you could not eat this ingredient alone or add too much of it. So yeah, if the dosage is appropriate, I think people who train their front lever specifically can have much more efficient form, and there is of course the technical part of front lever that should not be overlooked. But at the same time, I don't think like you can totally disregard the carryover and be an outlier due to specific training. I'm waiting for your opinions and further discussion in the comments while I go for the next point, which is the pull-up technique. Now, to get what I mean, we need to first understand what are the planes of movement. Basically, there are three basic planes our movements occur in. The sagittal, so movements to the front and back, frontal, movements to the side, and transverse plane. As we have this down, let's ask ourselves in which plane we work during front lever. The correct answer is sagittal, because we pull on the bar down and perform isometric shoulder extension, which is basically movement to the back. Now, what about pull-ups? I want you to look at both these pull-up techniques and spot the difference. If you look closely, in this example elbows go to the side, while here they go forward, mimicking what's happening in the front lever. I honestly doubt anyone uses neither of them as a casual form. It's probably something in the middle most of the times, but it represents that some pull-up variations may have a better carryover to the front lever. Now, I'm not saying you have to choose these variations in your training, that may be even detrimental to your progress in a long run, but I want you to recognize that the difference is there. So if you want the most reliable technique, you should maybe consider these options and repeat the test with them to get more specific. Maybe the form should be standardized in the pull-up test to really assess the carryover. At the same time though, doesn't the test lose its purpose then? For now, I'm gonna leave you with this thought and let you come to your own conclusions. It's been much over a month since I've been recording the first part, and so I'm very glad the project finally comes to the end. I would like to sincerely thank anyone who decided to complete the survey, the whole Reddit community, my Instagram followers, and obviously you guys. I really put my soul into this video and it costed me a lot of time and energy, many times the unproductive frustration as well. I hope the discussion continues in the comments and that you could actually learn something new today. The information regarding online calisthenics coaching is in the description, as well as the coupon code if you would like to get something like this shirt from Gornation Shop. I also put the links to all the articles I've been bringing up, and most importantly, I put the link to the original survey results so you can slowly analyze it yourself and make your own conclusions. Today I open up the survey again, so if you want to, you can still fill it out and contribute, and who knows, maybe we can get some interesting comparison in a year or so. I hope you're doing fine in these difficult times and that you're still with me after a longer break. Let me know how you're doing and hopefully see you soon. Thank you so much for watching. This was Things Movement TV. Talk to you next time.